The alarm's going off, man. Stop hitting snooze. I need you. If you're looking to feel like warm and fuzzy inside, like I'm your guy, so they're in my top 20 EHL teams for sure. There's emotion, there's hatred. This is not like a very friendly series. It's like SpongeBob when he's got like the napkin and like the potato chip. Like that's how I feel. Listen, Colson, I didn't have fun. Everything in my body hurts right now. The team that has the lead in the second period is just not going to win that game. There's no need for air quotes. He's tardy all the time. It's the American thing to do. I was alive, just not buried. No, don't get pucks deep. Hang on to the puck. Pass the puck. Shoot the puck. Are we live? Are we live? We're having a good time. JKP, baby. JKP.
Welcome back into the E Show podcast. For today's episode, we are back down south with one of the OGs here in the EHL, the Philadelphia Little Flyers, and their head coach, Mark Catron. Thank you for being with us, Coach.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jake.
Best hair in the EHL. I say it every.
Hey, thanks, buddy. Thanks. It's important, you know.
It's the most important, I would argue. Last year in this interview, we talked about how it was last year's start that kind of handcuffed you guys come the end of the season. This time it was very different, won 4 out of your first 6 games. So anything that you guys kind of focused on off the jump this year that you think helped have your guys a successful start?
No, I don't know if it was anything different that we did. You know what I mean? We just maybe had more guys like.
One more time.
Hold on, my daughter was calling, but I was trying to get at her. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, go ahead. Let's start it over.
Yeah, we'll start it over.
Okay.
Welcome into the E Show podcast. For today's episode, we are back down south, one of the originals from the EHL, from the Philadelphia Little Flyers, head coach Mark Catron, and the best hair in the EHL. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks, Jake.
So last year when we talked, we mentioned the slower start that you guys had. It held you back towards the end of the season. This year, different story, won 4 out of your first 6 games. Anything you guys focused on off the start of this season that kind of helped you guys get off on the right foot?
Yeah, I don't know if we focus on anything different. I just think we got off on the right foot. You know, I mean, we had really strong goaltending, which really helped because we didn't have a lot of goal scoring early on, especially. So we relied on, our defense and goaltending to kind of keep us in games. And, you see some of those first games are pretty low scoring, which a lot of our games were. We were a pretty low scoring team, but we also defended fairly well. So, I think that kept us in a lot of games, just the goaltending alone. And then we found a way to win some of them. And, obviously, not enough of them, but we found a way to win enough to keep us in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did have one of the youngest teams in the EHL, especially in your division, which is always pretty old and pretty heavy. So what were some of the learning curves that you're seeing with the younger guys in this league and getting them used to things?
Yeah, it's a big curve, actually. People come into our league and they just think, first they think, hey, it's EHL, so I'm coming out of AAA, it's going to be easy, and they realize, boom, it's not. And especially in the South Division, very physical, 200-foot games. And I think it hits them hard early on that, I was playing AAA, but now I'm playing 20-year-olds, and it's a big step up, for everybody in junior hockey alone. But in our league, it's I always say, listen, it's faster than you think, it's more physical than you think, and it hits them, and they kind of, it's like they have to, okay, I now have how to survive this, you know what I mean? So they have to, fish or cut bait, as they say. So, it's a big adjustment right off the bat for a lot of kids coming out of either one of those other junior leagues that aren't nearly as good as ours, and they think it's an easy walk, and they learn quickly that it's hard hockey.
And anything that you've noticed kind of helps those guys get acclimated to the EHL quicker? Anything from the coaching staff or maybe from the leadership of the team that could make that process easier?
Yeah, I think the bigger thing is from the guys who've been there before. Even though we have such a young team, look, 2 years in a row we had a ton of guys get taken by higher levels. So here I'm thinking I'm getting this core back, and they end up in higher level hockey, and so you really start over with a lot of new kids. So it's hard to say, hey, you 4 that are returning really show the way. So I think it's more just what you do in practice, prepare, and in our division, it's tough. So, they have to prepare quickly and then they learn quickly, hopefully, so, and some do and some don't, like just everything else.
And it didn't happen as much in your division, but we saw in the Central with HC Rhode Island, they were a team that got younger and saw some success, like yourself. So, do you think that some teams getting younger in the EHL? Do you think that's a reflection of some of the changes that we're seeing in junior hockey, where the league is getting a little bit younger than it once was?
Yeah, I hope it is. You know what I mean? It's easier for coaches if they don't have to re-recruit 22 guys a year. It makes it tough. It really does. And then some of these other leagues are so watered down, and there's they when you're adding 30 new teams, like where are you getting those guys from that are going to make you competitive? Whereas we seem to be this niche where we keep getting the good 200-foot guys. You know what I mean? They come in and they're again, they know how to play physical, they know how to play defense, they know how to play offense, and then it becomes just a grind of the season. And we get them out of some of these other leagues, and it's the first thing they mention is, man, this is so much better than I thought. So you know getting younger I think is a good thing, Jake, because then maybe we can have them for a couple years and develop them. But it's such a hard thing now to find everybody with so many teams out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your division, it just continues to get more competitive amongst you guys. The South has continued to fly its flag at the Frozen Finals. You guys had the back-to-back years. Then it was the 87s, the Bears this past season. So there's always been a South team, it seems. So, your guys' schedule is, that home and home type thing, very college.
Yeah.
How do you think that helps prepare guys for that time of the year when you're playing a schedule where you're going back and forth like?
Yeah, I think, and again, that started with Adam Hooley. He did a great job of saying, "Hey, let's do it this way." And it really, when we turned it into doing a home and home Thursday, Friday, or Friday, Saturday, or something like that, one, it helps us as coach because you get multiple days in a row to coach, right? And then you can also break down film on just one team for that week. Which really helps us because not much is going to change when you play Thursday, Friday. Maybe here and there a little bit, but not a lot. So I love the way we do our schedule. That we do a home and home every week with another team in our division. So it really helps because then again, Jake, you don't you say you play him in September, you won't see him again until mid to in November. And then you don't see him again until mid to end January. So it's kind of great. I think it's kind of cool that you're not seeing them over and over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a great point with the preparation that you guys have that time to prepare. Is it at all tougher from your perspective when, yes, you have that advantage of knowing a lot about this team, but they also have that same advantage
Right.
on you?
No, it's so it makes good hockey, right? Because then it becomes, you know, you're trying to scheme, and then it becomes again, I think, an effort thing. You know what I mean? Because we know who their top line is, they know who we are, and we know probably their weaknesses on defense, and they know ours. And so now it becomes, do you expose it and do you take advantage of it? And how many power plays and shorthands do you get, and do you take advantage of those as well? So
Yeah, and funny enough, I saw some of your guys at the PHC Bears series, which rounded out the South Division this year. You guys and the Bears went back and forth, a lot of one goal overtime games this year. 87s obviously last year. Is there ever a quiet rooting, do you think, for the South, for their fellow South teams when they're pushing along in the playoffs like that, or is the rivalry bleed into that?
no, I think we all get along pretty well. All the coaches seem to get along pretty well. I mean, I think I get along with all the coaches in the league, to be honest with you. Because again, a lot of us have been there for a long time. So, but in the South, we see each other so much that we become kind of friends. I mean, we want to, obviously we want to win the games and we want to beat each other, but we're not. We don't hold a grudge over, hey, you beat me, you did this, whatever. Listen, as soon as Bart's took us out. I'm like, hey, good luck in the next round. And I sent Jason a text, when he beat the 87s. And I just always, it's always good luck. Hey, that kind of thing. And, so I don't think there's any animosity like, hey, kind of like, I don't want you to win because you beat us. I think it's, hey, listen, we battle each other for 10 games this year plus playoffs. And so, hey, go do it, so.
And I think things change so quickly year to year, especially in your division. I think that just adds to it. Like there's another team on the helm, it seems, every year.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is when you know perfect example. I just saw, Bill, with the Seahawks, and he had a great year last year. And I always say I said, when you get a majority of returners, it's a lot easier because you already hit the ground running. Everybody knows what you want to do, and it saves you a lot of time, in on the ice of what you have to do when you have to do all new team. You're teaching every little thing about what you want to do, and that takes a little while for people to mend, to get kind of into the system that you want, So I just think the teams that get the more returners end up being the more successful teams, especially early on, And if you can ride it all the way, that's great. If, sometimes you can't, but um, I know when we've had a lot of returners, it's been more successful years for us.
Absolutely. And we're hoping that it's going to be the case this year. We're going to talk about some of those guys in a
Yeah.
little bit and just having those returners. But first, I want to get to that playoff series that you had against PHC. You guys threw the kitchen sink at them, played well enough to win in both games. So, how do you balance kind of the pride in the way your team played and stepped up to that playoff style of play with the disappointment of, bounces and we could say it calls that just didn't go your guys' way?
Mhm. Yeah, we won't talk about the calls, but but no, honestly, I told the kids, if you would learn to play this pace, because the pace was so much faster than our regular season, if you would just learn to play at this pace, you'll be successful in hockey. Because the games, when you hit the playoffs, it was another gear, and for both of us, and the games were so much faster. It's the first thing you notice, even watching them back. And I watched one back maybe a month and a half ago, and I just thought, wow, the pace of this was great. So if they can always learn, or just when they come back realize and that this is what we want to do from the beginning, I think we'll be more successful. But yeah, I was proud of the way they played. We couldn't give them any more. They were a great team. They were loaded with talent, and we just tried to kind of keep up with the hard work to maybe put us in the game. You know what I mean? So, and I was proud. I didn't think we could play any better than we did. It just they were just a very good team.
Yeah, 100%. And you started off by talking about how well your goalies played all season long. One of the strongest goalie rooms in the EHL, probably. I think about Tad was our number one goalie at the EHL All-Star College Series. He's headed off to NCAA hockey. Marty's coming back for you guys, which is a big-time returner. So how did those guys push each other and support each other throughout the season from your perspective?
Yeah, going in, I was because two of them were new. We knew Tad obviously, and I wasn't sure. I knew Marty obviously, and George Lewis. So when they came in, I thought, wow, all the three of these guys look pretty good. And it got to the point where I didn't have to say you're number one, you're number two. We just rotated goalies. Like it got to that point, and they all were very good. And having Marty back is going to be huge for us. Because he's a stud of a goalie. He really is. And so, like right from the beginning, you could see in practice that all three of them were good. Like all three of them were strong enough to be starters in this league. So that helped us a lot. So, again, it kept us in the games because we weren't offensively talented um, enough, especially in the beginning, to outscore teams. So we had to out goaltend, out defend to get some wins.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah, and that was obviously starts with Tad and Marty and George.
Yeah. And another returner for the upcoming year is Trevor Stanley, who was a non-age out captain this past season. We talked about him last year. So how did he show he was ready to take on that role as just an 06 this past season?
Yeah, he again, he's a leader in that room. He's not the biggest kid, but I'll tell you what, nobody will outwork him. He's kind of a pain in the ass to play against, and he's going to be a stud this year in our league. It'll be his fourth year, believe it or not. So I said he may lead the league in games played for the EHL by the end of the season, but. But again, he's not an overly big kid, but he's a worker. He'll keep working and keep working. He'll pester you, and I'll be, it's great to have him back for sure. Because he is a leader in that room and takes it seriously.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll see him in one of the all-star uniforms
Absolutely, you will.
as well.
Absolutely.
100%. I'm looking forward to that. Owen Ozer, another guy that you moved on to the NCAA. He is an EHLP to NCAA guy. He's a guy who trusted your program played multiple years of EHLP before jumping
Yeah.
up and scored a good amount of goals for you guys. Looked like a natural goal scorer quite often. So how rewarding are those kind of commitments for you as a coach?
Well, that was a big one for us because, Owen started with us really young. I think he played P for 4 years. And then we were like, hey, listen, well, I want to bring you up and see how you do. We brought him up a little bit last year, the year before, and he kind of struggled with, zone coverages and like knowing the game. He could always skate and shoot and all that. But he didn't know like the little parts of the game where he's going to need that. And he really worked on it a lot this year. He really focused on how can I become a better player? And it showed, what I mean? Like, um, and him going to Albright is going to be great for him, and I'm sure he'll be fine there. And he's a great kid. And so I think having that 40, I think he was 4 years in P, before we brought him up. I think, it became where he wasn't intimidated by the league, but he was just like, because he came up as a 20-year-old and then he's like, okay, what can I do to help the team? And I said, this is what you have to do. And he learned, he never like, hey, I don't think I can do this, or I don't understand this. He was just, I'm gonna keep trying it. And like everybody, he makes mistakes like everybody else, but he kind of went with it as he gone. And again, somebody noticed him, which is great, because and he did enough for it. He was probably somewhere in the teens in goals, and for a team that didn't score a lot of goals, that was big for us.
And when you look at now the some of the list of the names that I've mentioned, Tad was a multi-year guy for you. Trevor's going to be another big time, long tenured flyer. Owen, another one. So, how do these guys help set the tone for, an upcoming year where you're going to have a lot of returners? How do they help set the stage for that?
Well, I think all of them will do their part in the room, number one, because listen, the guys that are coming back, we relied on a lot. We only had 6 age outs last year, you know, and Tad being one, so we only had 5 player age outs, and so getting that group of guys back, they were already leaders in the room and helped us down the stretch and in the playoffs. They were a big part of the playoff. They logged a lot of time. So I think there's going to be a couple more returners that are going to that'll be back. That'll make us even stronger. Actually, that they're going to try a tryout or two, but if it doesn't go their way, they know that they'll get their ice time back here and they'll get looked at in the whole thing. So I expect even a few more of them to come back.
Yeah, and I mean, you only had one age out on defense who unfortunately missed the bulk of the season in our All Star, Tyler Alfano. So, But you mentioned how well your team defended. Do you think there's any specific challenges facing defensemen as far as getting used to the EHL goes and jumping up to this level?
Yeah, like I said, and Alf is a great example. He came from the Fury out here in Chicago. He's actually working the camp for me this week. The last 2 weeks, so yeah, I make him work for me in the summers. But
I love
um, yeah, so like he's a kid who came from a big program, the Fury, and the first year he came in as a 19-year-old, and he was same thing, struggled, and he was like, wow, this is faster than I thought. And then he knew, so over the summer between his 19 and 20-year-old year, he got in great shape. He and he came in and he was flying. He was a stud. And it's a shame that he got that knee caught on knee and took him out for that long. But and here's a kid who could have mailed it in at the end. You know what I mean? He could have said, "Hey, listen, I'm just coming off a knee surgery, and I'm just gonna take it through the summer." But he was like, "Nope." He worked his butt off to get back, even for that last part of it. And he was a stud in the playoff. And he was one of the reasons we kept it close enough with PHC was his ice. I mean, I think he logged 30 minutes a game. And he's a great kid too. Like all he cares about is the team. And I'll miss him a lot for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look at the way he supported our All Stars when he couldn't even play in the game. Like, he
Yeah,
was
he
there
went to the
every
games,
single
right?
day,
Right.
like even at practice, like he was. It was an impressive thing to see out of a young guy.
Yeah, he's a great kid. He really is. And he's going to go off to college and he had a lot of offers and it's a crazy story that he lived in me. He lived with me. I was in the billet, right? And because I've known him his whole life almost since he's a kid, because he used to come to my camps and now he works at my camps. But he was always doing homework. I'm doing homework. So as the season ended and he was getting offers, he tells me he's going to go to Iowa. And I said, why would you? You have a lot of D3 offers. He said, because I'm already done the first 2 years. So he's going in as a junior.
Oh, wow.
Right. So then it hit me like, now I understand. Yep. Now I understand why you weren't like listening to some of the D3 recruits coming to him. He was like, because he would have to, again, he didn't want to do that to another coach and say, hey, listen, coach, thanks for recruiting me, but I'm only coming in for 2 years. I'm a junior. And that coach going, hey, wait a minute, I'm trying to recruit a freshman class.
Hmm.
So I thought that was mature of him to tell these guys, listen, I appreciate it, thank you, but I'm going to go and I'm going to play at Iowa. But more importantly, I'm already done my freshman and sophomore year.
Hmm.
So he's going as a junior. So yeah, I mean, great for him, right? Great for his family because now they only have 2 years left of college, to take care of.
Yeah, true, true.
Yeah. So
Everyone's situation's different.
everyone's different. Yep, absolutely.
And we talked about this earlier, keeping the games low scoring, keeping the game super tight. Your team allowed fewer goals and more games played this year than the previous year. So how much do you credit your team defense growing as the year went on?
Yeah, even though I think we gave up a lot of shots, we again, when you're defending a lot, you tend to be in your zone a lot, which tends to get a lot of shots at your net. But between the goaltending and one and outs, wasn't a lot of scramble goals and things like that. It was a lot of one shot and we start coming the other way, right? So starts with good goaltending and then guys who can transition quickly to at least get it away from our net and play out. But I think that was the bigger thing. It was because we probably gave up as many shots. We just had, again, the goaltending was strong and the defense was strong enough to help us, to kind of transition out of it. And as the year went, it got a little better, until at the end of it, I thought we were playing our best hockey at the end, obviously.
Yeah, and there were some times where you guys were depleted due to injury and had forwards playing back
Oh,
on
it
defense.
was it was bad.
So
Yeah.
you see those guys, those step up in those situations, and just you don't have to buy into kind of what the team needed.
Yeah, I was telling Alo, here it was in January, and I was like, I don't even think we've had any scratch for injuries, and all of a sudden it hit us. Like it was injury after injury after injury, and we were down. We played a couple games with like 10 forwards and 5D, and we couldn't bring the P guys up because they had games that day or whatever it was, so we had a lot of games where we were really just playing three lines and trying to survive it, until we can get guys back from injury. Yeah, it really hit us hard. Like at one point, it was 7 or 8 guys at one time. It was a lot of, groin pull, shoulder, and concussion or whatever it is, and everybody deals with the injuries, but just, you know, whereas not like maybe a couple here, a couple here. It was just all seemed like
Yeah.
just they stacked, the injuries stacked, and we were trying to, play some games at the end with obviously way less than our full roster.
Mm-hmm. Ross Temple was one of the guys who had to shift around, and he's a guy
But yeah,
I've slated to come back. Brett Linker is going to come back. Those are some big names. Andrew Shaw,
big,
who's going to be jumping up from the P show. He was on my All-Star team, and he was our best defenseman, I thought, for
yeah.
Jake. So how do you expect having some important pieces like that? What do you expect from them to help set the stage next year right off the
Yeah, again, look at all the ice time those guys. And Matthias will be back on so they logged a lot of time last year, a lot of big time. I know Brett only came to us for a couple games. He had that shoulder, but and he wanted to shut it down early to be able to be 100% for his 20-year-old year, which I got it, it was good. And he always came around the locker, just to support the boys. But I think having those guys with the amount of experience they have and their talent level, I think it's gonna help shape the room, number one, but I think it's gonna carry us early,
Yeah,
you know. So
absolutely. Well,
yeah,
definitely looking forward to it. Have a couple left for you. You're only
sure.
2 years removed from the last Frozen Finals appearance. So, how much has that become a motivating factor for you as a coach heading into this upcoming season?
I think it's always great because we always say the more you play, the more people can see you, right? So the longer you play, the better, especially if you have a lot of 20-year-olds, so that's always been kind of the most motivating. Like everybody wants to win, of course, but I think a lot of us, I think almost all of us probably take the pride in how many guys we can get to college, because they trust you to do that. The reason they come to us, they're trusting you to put them out there, and coach them enough and develop enough for that. And And I think the longer you can play through the playoffs, I think that was the first motivating. That's fun to get when you get to Providence and you're like, okay, now you're playing in the last games of the year with everybody. And, that part is fun, and everybody wants to win, of course, but I think the bigger thing is I want to make sure these guys get off to college, because, it's not like I'm going to have a parade down Dutton Mill Road if we win, it's just going to be great for obviously the organization, for all the kids and for the coaches and all, but, it's a pride thing, I'm sure, but, we've been there enough to know that, listen, first of all, it's really hard to get there. And then once you get there, it's really hard to keep that momentum going and take it all, and we've been there, 5 or 6 times,
Mhm.
and it's hard. It's a hard road, you know.
And you do mention the pride you take in that, but all the coaches in this league, like you said, take most pride in moving guys on. You're now
Absolutely.
approaching a decade with PLF. Juniors has not gotten easier. It's not getting easier to move guys on. So, how has it changed the most in your opinion, and what can you guys do to stay on top of things?
I think the hardest thing for us now is that I think a lot of the other leagues have really gotten watered down. Like it really has. So when you're recruiting, it becomes harder because there's so many choices in junior hockey these days. And the kids that choose our league, that's a smart move, because they're getting looked at through the colleges. They're getting recruited into college. And we always say to them, like, do your homework. Like, do your homework. The teams you're talking to, have they ever even put anybody in college? Some of them put none in college. And I said, and you're trusting them as a 20-year-old to try to put you in college, where you look at the teams in our division, our league, I know we've put 100 and I don't even know what the number is, 140, 130, and you know what I mean, over the years, just in college, and now that's kind of the pride thing when I see them come back to the rink and play Newman, and you see the boys that you've coached, and it's great. Like that's a fun thing I just saw, I was just at the combine we had in Michigan for the EHL, and who's on the other ice? Finnegan and McDonnell.
Yeah.
So they come over with the big hugs and coach and the whole thing. And, so it's that kind of pride. They're like, McDonnell just graduated and he's Finn's going back for his senior year at Stevenson. And that's what makes you feel good. I walked out there feeling good because I saw the two of them, and it was great to talk to some kids and, about hockey and all that, like we always do, but it was great to see them. The kids that went through our program, went through our league, trusted our league, got into college, had great careers, and one's graduate, one's about to graduate. And then here they are in the rink practicing, and you know, and Neil comes over and goes, "Hey, a couple of your boys are in the other rink," and I go over there, and that's who it is, right? So
Can't ask for
I
much
said,
more.
I'll never get rid of you guys. Yes,
Perfect. Well, that's all you can ask for as a coach, I'm sure.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the fun of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just trying to get the kids on there because again, I feel like their family is putting a lot of trust in us, Alo and I, to get them there, and we do. I always say, listen, you're going to get yourself there, but I'm going to be the avenue you use. Like our team, our league will help you open those doors, but how hard you play, how well you play and all that, and how well you prepare, that's what's going to get you there because those colleges want to see a kid who's prepared to play at college. Like, not just because they show up in the EHL or any junior league, they want to see a kid who's prepared to go to the next level. So, and I think we as a league do a great job of it. All the coaches do.
Couldn't agree more, Coach.
Yeah.
What separates us from the pack. You help separate us from the pack, not only with your great hair, but with the great development that happens in Aston, Pennsylvania. So thank you for everything, Coach.
Sure, Jake. No problems. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Enjoy the rest of the offseason.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Learn more about us at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when our next podcast episode is released.